What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel here from the Geek Speak Nation channel, and today I'm here to bring you a review of Mortal Kombat. So before we get into this video, be sure to give it a like because it helps us out over here. And if you're new here and end up enjoying this review, consider subscribing. And if you do, make sure you hit that bell icon and you set it to all so you always get notified when I post a new video. But with that being said, let's get on with the review. And oh man, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I was pleasantly surprised. I went into this film with the mindset that I was like, I don't know, man, this might be as good as maybe Mortal Kombat Legacy was or something like that, where they just do this overly gritty reboot. They do some failed attempts at jokes, and it's just, they play fast and loose with the lore. And I just had a feeling in my gut this movie was not going to be very good or very faithful. And I have to say, they do play fast and loose with the lore, but for good reason. And I think it works. This movie actually genuinely is entertaining and fun to watch. Initially, when I ended up watching the film, I got together with a couple of my friends last night who I haven't seen in years due to, like, college stuff and pandemic stuff, things you can't say because we can't talk about the current, the V word going around because YouTube will not like that and strike down this little video. So we finally got to get together, and after not seeing my friends for years, and we decided to watch Mortal Kombat, and I was like, all right, boys, let's make a drinking game out of this. I have a set of rules, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I will give you the rules for the drinking game. So I was like, all right, boys, we're gonna do this. We're gonna watch this film. We're gonna endure it. We're gonna make it through. And to my pleasant surprise, I had a really good time, and I think it was a good litmus test, the kind of group that we ended up having. My friend, I had one friend, both friends of mine know nothing about Mortal Kombat. I love Mortal Kombat, the lore, all that stuff, looking up videos, looking up the comic books, all that sort of stuff, like getting as much knowledge as I can about the whole entire multiple timelines, all that stuff. But my friends know absolutely zero, zip, doodah about Mortal Kombat. So I thought it was a good litmus test. You have someone who's a really big fan, and then two people who just don't know anything about it at all, and one person who kind of tends to shy away from fantasy style stuff. But regardless, all three of us were thoroughly entertained, and it was not just because of the alcohol. The film is genuinely entertaining, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that the film strikes a really good balance of taking the story itself serious enough, and then most of that's due to the danger that a lot of the villains propose to the heroes, and how graphically brutal and violent they are towards them, and how merciless they can be. So that ends up creating that sense of danger and authenticity, and taking certain situations very seriously, because it ends up being serious consequences to certain things. But also, genuinely, the film is actually very funny. I did not expect that. The actor who plays as Kano does a really good job amongst the actor who does Kung Lao. I knew Kung Lao was going to bring the last. If you played the games, especially the more recent NetherRealm games, Kung Lao be hitting with those insults. He's really good. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by how humorous the film was, but not in like this cheesy Marvel way. Like, the banter was genuinely funny and fit where it was supposed to and felt natural. And then there was this nice little bit of hokiness to it. You know what I mean? Like, it is a bit of, just a little bit of cheese on top of this lasagna of fun. It was just like, it was just hokey enough with certain concepts, whether you're dealing with outworld, nether realm, and the tournament and who bears the mark and all that stuff. It handles those elements very well in a very entertaining way. Even though those were definitely some of the elements I was worried about the most, was, okay, how are they going to present the whole entire world in general of Mortal Kombat? And they went for a more grounded approach. And they played fast and loose with the rules of who was able to enter into the tournament. And even though the tournament doesn't really happen in this film, even though it quasi kind of does, it's very strange how they end up doing it. But it ends up working out in the end, because the film. So one of the film's greatest strengths and weaknesses is its runtime. They say the movie is listed at 1 hour and 50 minutes. It is not 1 hour and 50 minutes. The last 11 minutes of the movie are credits. 11 minutes. So you really only have like an hour 39, an hour 40 of actual movie. And because of that, things move at a really good pace. Like, you set up things very well. You get to know our characters in a very good establishing way. But the story just keeps rolling and keeps rolling and keeps rolling. We get to move to action set piece after action set piece, character development after character development. So it feels like this brisk adventure that you go on. Which kind of ends up helping with everything, because at the end of the day, you have a nice core character who you follow the entire time, who was actually one of the elements I was worried about the most, being Cole, this new character who didn't exist in any of the previous games, and they brought him in for this as someone who's like, he's supposed to represent us, right? The everyday man who gets thrusted into the world of Mortal Kombat and people shooting fireballs from their hands and taking souls from people's mouths. So he worked. And without him, I think the way that they tell this story does actually kind of fall apart. Even though I would have liked more characters that I previously was attached to taking up more of a center stage, I understand why they had to do it. And regardless, it was still satisfying as someone who's been a long-time fan, and it was satisfying for new viewers who know nothing about the world. So they got to be Cole in the situation of watching the film and get to understand this world better through him as he's learning everything. So I understand why they had to do that, and hopefully in the sequel, some main characters like Kang will get a little bit more time to shine, because the actor they casted is really good. But like I said, so the runtime is its greatest detriment and also its greatest strength, right? It keeps things brisk, keeps the action great, keeps things refreshing, keeps things funny, keeps things fun. You almost get this kind of Indiana Jones, where we're going across the world sort of feel to it at first. So it's very nice, and it keeps you on that pulpy action adventure kind of vibe, which is great. But the way the runtime ends up becoming a detriment is, like I said, longtime characters who are prominent figures in the video games, and protagonists and antagonists don't really get a lot of time to shine. Especially ones that end up getting killed off are some pretty big characters on both the hero and the villain side. And I was surprised that they chose to, one, not only introduce them in this first movie, where technically speaking, the official big Mortal Kombat tournament doesn't really happen because of the storyline. But these characters get killed off, and I know they kind of sequel bait certain things about certain characters, but I was very surprised that they took some big names and put them out there and took them out in the same movie. I was like, this is like a double-edged sword of, we might not be able to make any of these ever again, but then the other edge of the sword is like, if we do, we kind of screwed ourselves with some of these characters. But hey, in a world where magic happens and people shoot fire from their hands, it's not too big of a jump in logic to say some of these characters end up getting resurrected in some way, shape, or form, which is somewhat hinted at for some of these characters. But regardless, so certain characters don't get time to shine, certain villains don't get time to be as menacing as they could be. And also has to do with the smaller cast as well, because the cast is genuinely pretty small considering how many combatants are normally in Mortal Kombat. You know certain characters have to survive until a certain time, maybe certain character arcs have to be fulfilled, so it takes a while before you actually start getting into the nitty-gritty of certain fights, and you don't really get that till like the last 30 minutes of the movie. So that ends up being an unfortunate little detriment to it, and it also kind of hurts the pacing a little bit, because they need the film to keep moving and they need certain characters to quickly wrap up their story arcs, like especially our main character Cole. A lot of characters end up either coming off as literally stupid or like they just don't care. And I feel like the two biggest victims of that are our main character and Raiden in this film. And with our main character Cole, he makes it very clear that he cares about his family and that's what he's fighting for, but he forgets big details all the time, like, hey, remember, wherever you are, the bad guys can track you because you bear the mark of a fighter in the tournament of Mortal Kombat, and wherever you are, the enemies will find you. And then partway through the film, he's like, okay, cool, let me go back to the public and go see my family again. This won't endanger them at all. Like, what are you doing? Did you forget how the rules of Mortal Kombat works in these films? It is just, certain characters just do stupid things and endanger themselves and others, and you're just like, whose idea was this? This is so stupid. You're coming off as dumb. But the film moves so briskly into each action sequence that you kind of end up forgetting about it. But like, if you spend too much time thinking about these character motivations and where they could have gone instead and what they could have done to prepare and all this stuff and yada yada yada, you could easily nitpick this film to death and rip apart its story and plot holes or plot contrivances or plot conveniences and McMuffins, all that sort of stuff. It's very easy to do that. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, I'm not here watching a Thomas Paul Anderson film, so is it Thomas Paul Anderson? I think so. Director of There Will Be Blood and yeah, I think it's Thomas Paul Anderson. Regardless, I'm not going here for an art house film. You know what I mean? And I think that the story is competently told enough. But, there's just certain limitations on it. And I think the budget definitely had to do with that as well. Because there's some big names in here, but we'll get into that don't really get a lot of time to shine. Regardless, moving forward, like I said, another issue or a character who ends up suffering is Raiden. Now, it is a bit of a meme amongst the Mortal Kombat community that Raiden, God of Thunder, is kind of useless. And I mean that in the most sincere way possible. He is genuinely useless. The whole entire thing is that the Elder Gods are not allowed to interfere with the events of Mortal Kombat. They cannot directly engage, punch, kick, and fight other people because they're not supposed to be the champions. But it just gets to a certain point where you're watching the movie where I'm gonna add it to a rule to the drinking game that you should be able to take a sip or take a shot every single time Raiden shows up after somebody has already died or the conflict has already been resolved. Because it is so annoying that the villains will go through, and the Elder Gods for the villains and all these other people for the villains side will go through, they will intervene, they will mess with our heroes, they will mess with this, mess with their training, mess with that, they will ruin this, kill these people they care about, attack these people they care about, will do all these things to ruin the tournament before it even starts. And then Raiden just sits there and just goes, there's nothing I can do. It's like, what? What do you mean? You could teleport some people out of here. A lot of people died who didn't have to. If you just whoop, boop, you teleported people. And then they do that stupid thing I hate so much, where you have like a mentor character in a film who's just like, as soon as you meet them or he meets this cast of characters and he's just like, You're all useless. You all suck. I hate all of you. Earth is doomed because you all are all the worst fighters ever, and you all suck. I hate my job. Goodbye. Earth is doomed. And then when characters rise up to the occasion and prove him wrong and fight for what they believe in and find this inner talent and inner power that they never knew they had, he goes, "This was my plan all along." Really? This was your plan all along? Really, Raiden? No prior indication? You were just being a dick for no reason? Like, it just got so comedic after a certain point where you're just like, dude, no you didn't. There's no way you could have predicted that these like 8 billion actions in a chain sequence of events over the course of years or generations would eventually lead this one person to have this one bit of character development, and then he just looks at the villains and just goes, "Don't underestimate my students." And you're like, what? What are you talking about, Raiden? You were literally an absent father this whole entire film. Like, he's hardly in it. Like, he just teleports people places, gives doom prophecies, and then tells every single main character they suck. And then that's all he does. Like, Raiden is so useless in this movie. So yeah, I hope they give him a more expanded role in the future, because he's just like, I get it, he's not supposed to be directly involved, but like he was just so, like, it got comedic. Like, we were just laughing at how bad Raiden was, and like every single time after like a climactic battle happened, people decapitated, dead, characters are dead on good and bad side, and then just as soon as the violence ends, he just boop. I can't believe this has happened. They violated the rules of Mortal Kombat. Really? Where do you go? Where do you go? People are fighting in your temple. Where do you go this whole time? Sorry, I just had to go on a little rant about how stupid Raiden is in this movie. But yeah, so that's part of the consequences, that some characters just look like absolute dingleberries because of the runtime. That's why I started on this diatribe, but I had to get this off of my chest. Like, it just bothers me when characters do that, and they do that because they're like, oh, this character's too powerful. Then why have him in the movie at the first place? At this point, like, why was he even in the movie? Besides, like, just canonically for fans, he had to be in there because he was just so useless. And I think another character that suffers from that issue is definitely Scorpion. They casted such a great actor, a brilliant Japanese actor to portray Hanzo Hasashi. And I do not like the way that Scorpion was used in this film. He has a great opening sequence as Hanzo, and he has one other big action sequence, and that's it. Literally everything you see in the trailer is it for Scorpion in the movie, and he's in like all the promotional material. He's in all of the, you know, the trailers. He's all the big shots in the trailers, and it's like, he's hardly in the movie. He's in the movie less than Raiden is. Like, he's barely in this film. Like, what? Like, he just basically just becomes like a Final Fantasy summon. Like he's just not even like a real character either. He just pops up and then it's like, okay, let's do the big action sequence, and then he's just gone. It was cool. It was really, really cool. But he didn't come off as someone who had been training in hell for centuries when he fully transitions into Scorpion. He comes off as a guy who's like, I got some neat party tricks and I can do some cool stuff. But you know, I don't do this professionally. I was like, you know, I think you kicked more butt when you were Hanzo. So I think Scorpion was a little bit lackluster, and I think that's only because of his screen time. If he had more action sequences, if they threw in more, you know, dummies and henchmen at him, I think it would have been even more satisfying. Like, just see him, like we see him in the opening sequence, just slaughtering his enemies in like waves. If we have more of that in his, you know, his second appearance in the film where he's fully Scorpion, that would be awesome. But we don't get that. We just get one big fight. It's a good big fight, but it's one big fight. So yeah, Scorpion definitely suffers in this movie, and I wish they were able to do more with them, but like I said, I think it's an issue of runtime, and that actor's probably not cheap, and their budget was so small. I think it was like the budget for like Deadpool. I think this movie was made like what? No, it had to be no more than like 20-something million dollars. Right? I'm talking about like the type of money that an Avengers movie spends on catering is what this whole entire movie was made for. Special effects and actors and choreography and stunts and location, all that stuff, and all for the same price. But yeah, so it was Scorpion was a little bit disappointing, along with some other characters. There's some big name characters who end up showing up. I won't spoil it, but yeah, but there's some big name characters showing up who end up just kind of getting thrown to the wayside. Which is really, really unfortunate, because I thought they were really cool the way that they were designed and the way they handled them design-wise, but they just didn't get a lot of time to shine, so it sucks. But regardless, I was happy with everything else in the film, though. It's a really good time. Just such a fun movie. It's just such a fun movie. Genuinely hilarious at certain parts. The violence, it's great. It's great. It's wonderful. It just gives you so many moments you watch the film. You're like, ooh. It's awesome. It's not as graphic as the video games are by any stretch of the imagination. It's nothing compared to the video games. But it is. It gets a little ranchy. It gets a little graphic, and it's a good time. It's a good time. The action sequences are very well done. All the actors are very good in their action sequences. The only problem is they kind of bunch up like a bunch of fights back to back in the last 30 minutes, and I feel like certain fights suffer, because it does make it like a hype last 30 minutes where it's just nonstop action, and then your brain just goes full gorilla mode, and you're like, yes, hit, punch. Like, you love that part. But when you end up watching the film, like, and you end up reflecting on it, you're like, individually, those fights are even cooler if we got to see them in a traditional tournament style where we had more time to focus on the fights. But because of the runtime, they have to kind of scrunch all the fights back to back together to make like this big climactic third act where they're like, everybody's dying. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And it's very exciting when you're watching it. But when you're reflecting on it, you're like, man, that fight was really cool, but it was only like 8 cuts. It was just interspliced with so many other fight scenes. You're just like, oh yeah, I didn't really get to enjoy that fight as much as I thought. It was just kind of like highlights of super moves, with some good, back and forth hand-to-hand combat. But I think the fights would have been even better if they had more time to spend on them. So, but with that being said, I think that I've been talking for way too long about the Mortal Kombat movie. But yeah, to summarize my thoughts, it's a super fun time. It's got my seal of approval. Go into it, know it's going to be cheesy. It's going to take itself kind of seriously. It's going to be graphically violent, and it's just an enjoyable film. Just don't think too hard about that story. Don't think too hard about it at all. And I hope that in the sequel, they get more time to expand on the fight scenes and get more time to let certain character development breathe. And I hope that, Scorpion's not some stupid MacGuffin plot device, and that he's an actual character that gets used as like this wild card that he should be. But yeah, with that being said, also Bihan, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the actor's name. He's in the Raid movies. He's a really good martial artist. Oh my god, is it Jack? I'm forgetting his name, but the actor who plays as Bihan in this film, who plays as Sub-Zero, is so good. His choreography is amazing, and every time Sub-Zero is on the screen, they do incredible special effects. They do incredible set design. They do just amazing stuff with his powers, and the things they come up with are extremely brutal. They do a really, really good job with Sub-Zero in this film. Sub-Zero fans are going to be extremely happy, because he's basically the big bad of this movie, and they put some respect on his name. He was totally awesome. I wasn't feeling Shang Tsung in this film though. I think the actor that casted Shang Tsung, he plays the villain in Rush Hour too. But yeah, he's good, but he takes it way too seriously. They just wrote him way too seriously. It's just like every single time Shang Tsung comes on screen, it's like he's in a different movie. Like he's just taking every line so seriously, and I will take your soul. And it's just like, dial it back a little. Everyone else is getting a little loosey goosey, having a good time. I think the director went a little too far in trying to make him just appear evil, when they could have just, done how they did with a lot of other villains, let the character design or let the violence speak for itself. And this, he just kind of comes off as just kind of awkward, which is unfortunate because the actor that cast it is really, really good. I think his name's Han. But yeah, so with that being said, guys, that is my thoughts on Mortal Kombat. Techno music. Now let me pull out my phone, because I told you guys that I was going to give you my drinking game list. My list of things to the drinking game. Okay, so this is either by sip or by shot basis. This is entirely up to you. Rule number 1, we said if anyone says Mortal Kombat, that's a sip. Rule number 2, if there's a cheesy one-liner, you take a sip. Let's see here. And then we also have rule number 3 was every time someone says the word destiny, I thought that was going to come up, so it did not. So I would replace that with whatever other rule that you would want to go in there for number 3. So because that one didn't end up showing up, you could do anytime someone says, whatever. No. You just have to make your own rule number 3. Rule number 4, every fatality is a finish the drink. That one was a bold one we put in there. Whenever someone gets like a brutalized finish, just finish it. Or you can do a sip. We chose a finish. We were living bold yesterday. Let's see here. Number 5, Scorpion. Anytime he says get over here, that's a double sip. We got a double sip when someone says, we said double sip if someone else says get over here, or any other variation of somebody else's line or catchphrase. Number 7, we have a sip for every single time you see the Mortal Kombat symbol. And then we had number 8 for every named character death. That's a sip. And then 9, a sip for every special move from the video game used in the movie. Number 10, sip when someone says something along the lines of finish him, flawless victory, or fatality, if they actually say those words. And then number 11 was take 2 sips if the OG MK theme plays, the techno one. So yeah, those are the rules that we have for the game. It's a good time. It's a good time. Not only the drinking game that we came up with, but the movie in general is really, really fun. So I hope you all enjoy it like you enjoyed this review. And like I said in the beginning, make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed this review, and make sure you subscribe to become a part of the Geek Speak Nation channel. Set that bell icon to all so you always get notified when I post a new video. I was pleasantly surprised with this film. I hope the sequel expounds upon what we got. They did a really good job. I was pleasantly surprised. I can see how a lot of people would be disappointed with it, and that's fair, especially a lot of MK fans. They don't go all the way with certain concepts or giving a lot of characters a certain shine, but I was satisfied. I had a good time. Left me wanting more in a good and bad way in certain ways, but still, good stuff. I recommend watching it with friends, whether it's on Zoom or in person, what have you. It's a good time. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And with that being said, I think it's time for me to sign off. I've been talking for like 30 minutes about Mortal Kombat. I was like, I can knock this out in like 8. But I had a lot on my mind about this movie. So that's kind of a good thing. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Daniel, and don't forget to get geeky.